TikTok could be banned in the United States in a mere matter of months, but today its lawyers are headed to court to try to stop that outcome in the latest battle between the social media platform and the U.S. government. ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, is suing to block the law and is going to argue that the ban would violate Americans' free speech rights. The U.S. government says the platform's ties to China is a national security threat.
Now, the case is poised to head to the Supreme Court, and many believe that SCOTUS will indeed hear that case, given the high stakes and the Justice's established interest in Internet-related and First Amendment-related cases.
Yes, and that will be interesting because I would say the Supreme Court has a pretty robust kind of free speech tradition. Its interpretation of the First Amendment has gotten more in favor of keeping speech free, legal, uncensored over time. You know, in this era of partisanship and accusations that the court has become partisan and it's so split and 5-4 decisions and conservative takeover, there is still actually a lot of agreement on speech-related cases, in particular on the Roberts Court across the board. And this, you know, this is not such a clearly politically divided issue, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost sort of the divide is the establishment versus others, because now while Donald Trump was in favor of a TikTok ban when he was president and took some steps along that line, he's now changed his mind. He's against banning TikTok. Elon Musk is against it. Tucker Carlson is against it. A lot of people on the right have spoken up about how this would be bad for free speech, kind of in the online space. Now, other Republicans think that this is a national security issue, join with Democrats in thinking, yes, get this Chinese spy app out of our pockets, out of our, off our phones, that kind of thing. I am very skeptical that this could stand up to First Amendment scrutiny personally, for the same reasons that, we allow propaganda and we allow bad speech and we say that you have a right to hear that. This is the U.S. government saying we are voiding your ability to consume speech in this way because we think it's a national security risk, but that's not consistent with the First Amendment.
Yeah, and I think the division that you drew between the establishment and the non-establishment or anti-establishment people is important, because on the left you have people like AOC who are also opposed to a ban on TikTok because they see it as, I think, a form of bias, really, or of trying to outlaw or minimize particular kinds of speech. And it's not like they're inventing that out of thin air either. Mitt Romney a while ago gave this interview where he seemed to link the desire to ban it to the degree to which pro-Palestinian sentiment arose on it. Now, without getting into the whole Gaza question, that's not a reason to ban an app. I think there are a couple of points here. I'm not a huge fan of the idea of banning TikTok because I think the arguments seem often rather specious to me. Chinese influence, foreign governments have all kinds of ways of propagating influence. And the idea that this is a particularly important or vital threat, I'm just not persuaded by. Now, whether there are arguments that could be made in other cases about, if a platform was explicitly designed to either push a foreign message or to push, racism or something like that, I think I would be more likely than you would be to support some sort of restrictions on that. But in this case, I think the pro-First Amendment case is a pretty strong one.
Yeah, look, I don't doubt that China can and the Chinese government has used TikTok to disseminate or push narratives it prefers. We know they have some influence over the app, and we know what their policies are. We know that Google, to get into China, had to make all sorts of deals with the devil to suppress content the Chinese Communist Party wants suppressed, that content that humiliates Xi Jinping, content that talks about Tiananmen Square, things that are embarrassing to the Chinese government. So I have no doubt that they would seek to use their influence over the app in ways that they think are vital to their national security, that are destabilizing the U.S. And also, we know that the U.S. government has done that to the social media apps somewhat under its control, despite the protections of the First Amendment. We know now, it has been exposed, that federal agents representing the FBI and the CDC and all sorts of other agencies put pressure on social media companies to take down speech they wanted taken down. Now, it's not because we do have the First Amendment, it's not as hands-on as China. It was suggestions. Please just do that. And they felt pressured to respond. My answer is, so let's focus on that. Let's get something to stop that kind of pressure happening before we worry about something that we have less control over, which is China trying to do influence here. And I think, again, you have a right to consume that kind of content. And then you can come up with, again, on Twitter they have community notes where people say, oh, this is wrong for this reason, or this is hateful for this reason, or check this, or the source of this might be some foreign manipulation or whatever. Letting people address that is better than denying everyone access to it.
And related to that, the big argument that one often hears made against TikTok is this idea of data privacy as well. The Chinese will be able to see what you're doing and where you go online and all of that. But are the people who make that argument opposed to invasions of digital privacy generally, or only when it's a Chinese app that is doing it? I think the issue of digital privacy is a massive issue, but sometimes that argument seems to me selectively applied against TikTok, where it's considered fine to have Facebook or Google or whoever have enormous amounts of our private data in their own control, and they could at least theoretically use it as they wish.
Yeah, that Pandora's box is just already opened. It's too late. We have signed over so much of our data to all of the social media companies. If they were not getting it directly through TikTok, they could actually buy it. They could purchase. Available for purchase. I think a lot of people are, you're right, uncomfortable with the amount of data that they've maybe without their necessary. I mean, you consent when you don't read the fine print, but when you log into the social media company, you are giving them those permissions to learn about you, and they're observing things about you, right? They're seeing what kind of content you engage with. They're learning what kind of things you like to buy, and then they're recommending things to you based on that. It's not always necessarily nefarious, but obviously can be harnessed and used for nefarious purposes, but just seems pretty unavoidable at this point.
No, I think that's true. Just to sort of wind this back to the political realm, Trump has obviously flip-flopped on this, essentially, gone from the ban to anti-ban. Why do you think that is?
Well, it seems like he got lobbied a little bit by some Republican donors who thought it was that they were going to lose out because of it. But his stated reason for flip-flopping is that and this is not wrong, that if you ban TikTok, then that actually adds to the builds up the market power of, for instance, Facebook, a rival firm. And Trump has more problems with Facebook. Now Mark Zuckerberg has really tried to make nice with him, correctly admitting, in my view, that they were pushed to do moderation that they were uncomfortable with, and they regretted, and they wouldn't do it again, and that Mark Zuckerberg has said he's not making an endorsement, he's not getting involved in elections, he wants to be hands-off. Again, I think that is smart and good, but Trump has been so combative with Facebook, he's like, well, why would I want to help out them? And there is something to that. Maybe it can be presented in a less self-serving manner than that, but just shutting down, we're all concerned about tech monopolies and consolidation. Well, if you ban or eject a major platform, you are empowering what remains, and you're going to actually make the monopolies, if you think it is a monopoly, more likely, which it would not be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean,
we want competition.
Right. I mean, there's an argument for sure against the government picking winners and losers, is the way that tends to be articulated on the Conservative side. I think that's a valid argument. I am highly skeptical that actually in his heart and soul Donald Trump is opposed to the government picking winners and losers. I think he's opposed to people who he dislikes and in favor of people who he likes, which is a different argument.
Well, that does it for us today on Rising. Thanks for tuning in our first episode in this new studio. It's been a lot of fun. Let us know how you thought it went. If you've got any suggestions for us, I'll be happy to read them in the comments. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are available anywhere you can find podcasts. And I'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.